Good morning, Bucket Ponds friends and family. Today we have an exciting video. We are comparing paludariums. These are sealed, self-sufficient ecospheres built to sustain themselves without any additional food, water, oxygen, nothing. The lids remain sealed permanently. But I want to compare them and see what we have improved upon as we've gone through the years of bucket ponds. Our first build was very simple. Our second build was a big improvement, and our most recent build here on the left is beautiful. So let's start with the original sealed paludarium, built in October 2019. So you see that piece of duckweed there? That was a label. It had some information about the jar written on the front. Unfortunately, it's been so long that ink has faded away completely. But the jar looks pretty good for being sealed up for about 4 years now. We see some green moss up top. The water is nice and clear, and I am not entirely upset or disappointed by it. Now, we built this in a very simple way. It is a paludarium, which means it has a land portion and a water portion. But I completed and installed the land portion by simply filling a smaller jar with soil. I then placed that down into the middle of the tank and built a rock wall behind it with marble. The build video for this tank is unlisted. It's very bad. It's very old. You're not going to miss anything if you don't watch it. But yeah, the jar is functional, but it does not have uh, much of an ability to look inside of it. The glass is cloudy. It is blocked by spores, fungus, algae, and moss. Now, the moss is beneficial, as is the algae, but when building projects like this, you want to look inside. You want to see what's going on in there. I do see some green moss, nice bright green in there. That looks good. So overall, the plant life has maintained some form of growth and expansion. I built this originally with creeping jenny, hypnomoss, and some grass plants that I used to grow in the farm tank. Long story. But this tank, it looks okay. This paludarium is not horrible. Now, I don't see much action going on here at the water portion. It's not very deep, and it's not very pretty to look at. So I'll be judging the paludariums based on their appearance and their ability to maintain life forms inside of the jar. But looking a little bit more closely with the macro lens, we can see that we have a ton of water mites in here. That's right. There are many different species spread throughout the world, but these particular water mites are part of our bucket ponds creature collection. We've seen them numerous times in different projects, jars, and aquariums here, and I love them. I think they're really cool. Recently, one of you guys were asking about them in the comments, and yeah, I don't think that they are predatory, as there are no fish or anything like that in here. They are feeding on plants. I believe that they use their mouth parts to pierce a little hole in the plant and feed on some of its nectar or its sap, essentially. But they are related to spiders and ticks. They are arachnids, and I think that's really cool. Apparently, they've done very well in here for themselves over the last 4 years. And they seem to be breeding and maintaining a healthy population. So I'm very excited about that. You know, I could go up to somebody and say, "Hey, I've been raising arachnids in sealed jars for 4 years. What have you been up to lately?" But looking at the lowest level of the aquarium, of the paludarium, I can see a very dense mold layer. That's a surprise. I'm not quite sure how this generated. Possibly bladder snails ate some of the plants and broke down that material. But if you look very closely, this is not snail waste. This is something else. I believe this is from the water mites and probably some ostracods as well. Now, previously in the 3-year update, we did see some bladder snails in here. And I wouldn't doubt that there are probably a few small ones down there in the substrate, as well as a few small worms and things like that. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see if they make another appearance or if they've gone completely extinct. While looking around in the jar, I happened to find this unusual structure here. which may be an old snail shell, but I believe it's a piece of perlite from the potting soil that we used to build this project. I used Miracle Grow organic potting soil, if I remember correctly. But it is covered in algae, and the ostracods are here feeding on it. I'm aware it's a bit blurry, but that's mostly an effect of this jar. So ultimately, I would say that this project is successful, but it is not very nice to look at. We have seen an interesting species combination of our moss and our water mites. I'm curious how that may develop in future projects, but we know now that we can raise water mites in a sealed jar without any issues, and they do quite well. So now let's look at our second paludarium, which was built on October 28th of 2022. And this jar has been going for about a year now, and please keep in mind that these projects are permanently sealed. I do not open them. The glass is far more visible here. We can look more easily into the jar, and it looks pretty nice. I like the contrast between the green plants and the red lava rock. It feels very Christmassy, and I'm curious if maybe we can't build some kind of Christmas aquarium in the future. Maybe we will this year. But this project is successful, and as far as the plants go. But we did a an update of this tank just a few weeks ago, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. Suffice to say that there are some very nice pets inside. We have a few different plant forms that are still living up here at the surface, namely that same hypno moss and what I believe is bladderwort and duckweed. Down here below, we have some small bladder snails, a few ostracods, the occasional planarian, and yeah, I'm not disappointed with this project. But I noticed after studying this one for a year or so that the water level was just way too low. It can't support as many life forms as I'd like to see. I want to have an overpopulated, permanently sealed paludarium. That might sound kind of weird, but that's my goal. I want to have an overstocked paludarium that is able to sustain itself in the long term. So let's compare it to our most recent build that we set up about 2 weeks ago from the date of this video. So it looks like a blackwater nano aquarium. I think that would be a good term for it. But it's not entirely dark inside. And I'm excited to dig in. Well, I'm excited to look in there. Wanted to say dig in, but yeah, we never open these projects. I am completely married to the idea of a sealed paludarium ecosphere. That's very important to me. I know that it's not a big thing with every other hobbyist, but that's something that I enjoy. I run a number of sealed and unsealed jar aquariums, as you can see on the shelf there. But let's compare it to our original tank as well. Let's bring all three out in a lineup. There we go. So looking at these three, you can see some stark differences here. The first paludarium on the right is much lower with a lot less plants inside, and as a result, we see less life. The jar in the middle, we used what we learned from the first project. We have way more plant life and a bit more water because we have less structure in the jar. There is no smaller jar in here, nothing like that. Please forgive my light as it comes into frame. And our newer project is much deeper. Yes, I wanted to go in a completely different route with this one. So this jar, this paludarium, was built on January 7th of 2024. I built all three of these using pickle jars, of course, and this one I happened to use a slightly different brand because the original jars, their lids are starting to corrode, and I worry that they may fail one day. But looking at the surface of this newest jar here, and we can see in there pretty well. In fact, we even have a tiny little friend. There's a few of them in there. These are very small millipedes, and if you look at the center of the frame, you might be able to see them. There we go. So I'm hopeful that they will breed in here, and I don't know if they are simply young or if they are just a small species, but I hope that they can live in here and reproduce. That'd be really cool, and I'd love to see more of them in the future. Up here at the surface, we also have a ton of bladder snail eggs, and that makes me very happy. See, the bladder snails are laying their eggs based on the amount of food available in their environment. So they're basically telling me here that there is a lot of organic material for them to eat in this sealed project. And that's really cool. That makes me very happy. That's about 30 or 40 baby bladder snails, probably more than that, waiting to emerge and join the population of the sealed paludarium. I'm very excited about that. You might wonder, where is all this food coming from? Well, most of it is the substrate that we used on the island. The black cow compost there will act as a long term food source for the snails, as well as any other pets inside the project. They'll break that stuff down, making it into a more easily accessible version for the plants to use as fertilizer. But looking very closely with our special lighting system here, you'll see a ton of tiny specks floating throughout the water column. And those tiny specks are paramecium. They are living, breathing, eating, reproducing creatures, life forms, and they're really interesting. I'm just so happy to see them in here. I did not mean to turn this into a paramecium culture, but it kind of works. And just think about it. It's a sealed paramecium paludarium. It sounds so good. But I am very happy with this one, you guys. This represents all of the experience that we've gained over the last 4 years. We've learned quite a bit about how deep to make the water. In this project, we used a piece of plexiglass that I had to modify, and we made an island in the background there. On top of that plexiglass, or behind it rather, I stacked up some lava rock and some black cow. On top of that, we planted some moss. We have two different types of moss in here. I'm hoping that the surface level moss will not get very tall so we can always see inside. And the normal moss that we usually use, we put that down into the bottom. And that is hypnomoss. It will grow underwater. It looks quite nice. It's very similar to japa moss. So if you can't find what I use in particular, then maybe you can find some java moss. It's pretty easily available. Big thank you to our patrons, Clay Wise, Swan C, Jay, Jeff Kiesner, and Ashley Danielle. Your support means the world to me. I am very grateful. If you guys would like to join them and get a shout out at the end of every video, please check out the Patreon linked in the description below. You can donate any amount, even $1 helps, or you can join as a free member and just show a little extra love for bucket ponds. Either way, I am very happy to have you there. So have a great day, guys. I'll be back with some more jar aquarium type videos in a few days. Until then, we might have a few extra short videos and other things for you to watch on the channel. Have a great day. Thank you for watching.